His boot connected with the wheelchair. Metal screamed against gravel as she crashed sideways, her body slamming into the cold earth. The badge on his chest caught the fading light. He stood over her, breathing hard, fists clenched, believing his uniform made him untouchable, believing no one would dare challenge him. But 30 yards away, a shadow moved. A German shepherd locked eyes on the deputy muscles, coiling breath, stopping completely. The former Navy SEAL holding the leash didn't speak. He didn't need to. What happened in the next 60 seconds would destroy a 15-year empire of corruption and expose a truth that powerful men had killed to protect. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from. Drop your city in the comments so we can see how far this story travels. And if this journey moves you, please subscribe and stay with us until the very end. The wheelchair hit the gravel with a sound like breaking bones. Sarah Mitchell's body followed a half-second later, her shoulder taking the impact, her hip grinding against the cold stones. The air left her lungs in a sharp gasp. For a moment, she couldn't process what had happened. 1 second, she'd been sitting upright, hands firm on her wheels. The next, the world had tilted violently sideways. Above her, Deputy Wade Brennan stood with his chest heaving, his hand still extended from the shove. "I told you to watch your mouth," he said. Sarah's fingers clawed at the dirt. Her legs lay useless beneath her, twisted at angles that would have hurt if she could feel them. 2 years since the accident. 2 years since she'd lost the use of everything below her waist. 2 years since Ryan died in that same crash, and she'd been fighting alone ever since. "You think I'm scared of you?" she whispered. Wade crouched down, bringing his face close to hers. His breath was hot against her cheek. "You should be." And 30 yards away, Marcus Cole stopped walking. His German shepherd ghost had already frozen. The dog's entire body had gone rigid. Every muscle. Locked, his amber eyes fixed on the scene unfolding near the river bend. No growl, no bark. Just absolute stillness, the kind that came before violence. Marcus had seen that posture before, in Afghanistan, in Syria, in places where the next 3 seconds determined whether men lived or died. "Easy," Marcus murmured. Ghost didn't move. Marcus's eyes traveled from the dog to the figures ahead. A woman on the ground, a man standing over her. Even from this distance, he could read the body language. Predator and prey. Dominance and fear. His hand tightened on the leash. Sarah tried to push herself up, but her arm buckled. The fall had done something to her shoulder, sent fire racing through the joint. She collapsed back against the gravel, breathing hard. 2 years, Wade said softly, almost conversationally. 2 years you've been digging. Asking questions. Bothering people who don't want to be bothered. He tilted his head, studying her like she was an insect. "I've been patient, Sarah. Real patient. Your brother killed Ryan." The words came out ragged, but she didn't care. She was done being careful, done being afraid. Wade's expression flickered. Just for a moment, something dark moved behind his eyes. "My brother had too much to drink. It was an accident. The investigation cleared him." "The investigation was a lie." Sarah's voice grew stronger. "I have the original blood test, the one that disappeared from evidence. Your brother's blood alcohol was 3 times the legal limit, and you made it go away." Wade's jaw tightened. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know Ryan was going to expose you." Sarah pushed herself onto her elbow, ignoring the pain. "I know he found out about the bribes, the protection money, all those DUIs that magically vanished when the right people paid the right price. Shut up. He was going to turn you in. That's why your brother ran him off the road." Wade moved fast. His hand closed around her collar, yanking her upper body off the ground. Sarah grabbed his wrist, but she had no leverage, no strength to fight back. "You think anyone's going to believe you?" Wade's voice had dropped to a whisper. "A cripple with a grudge against a decorated officer with 15 years on the force. I have proof. You have nothing. I have copies, multiple copies, with multiple people." Sarah forced herself to meet his eyes. "Kill me, and it all comes out anyway." For a long moment, Wade didn't move. His grip on her collar didn't loosen. His breathing came fast and shallow, and Sarah could see him calculating, weighing options, measuring risks. Then he smiled. It was the worst thing she'd ever seen. "Who said anything about killing you?" He released her collar, letting her drop back to the ground. There are so many other ways to make someone's life miserable. So many ways to make them wish they'd never been born. He straightened up, adjusting his jacket. "That shoulder looks bad. Might want to get it checked out. Wouldn't want you falling out of that chair again." Sarah's hands were shaking. She hated that they were shaking. "This isn't over," she said. Wade laughed. "Sweetheart, it never started. You're nobody, and nobodies don't win." "She's not nobody." The voice came from behind Wade, calm and level, carrying the kind of authority that didn't need volume to command attention. Wade spun around. Marcus Cole stood 10 feet away, his dog at his side. He hadn't made a sound approaching. Neither had Ghost. They'd simply appeared like shadows given form. "Walk away," Wade said. "This doesn't concern you." Marcus didn't move. His eyes went from Wade to Sarah, taking in the woman on the ground, the wheelchair lying on its side, the fear and fury warring on her face. "Looks like it concerns me now." Wade's hand drifted toward his belt. Not his weapon. Not yet. Just a reminder of where it was. "I'm a deputy with the Willow Creek Sheriff's Department. This woman and I are having a private conversation. I'm going to ask you one more time to walk away." "You're off duty." Marcus's voice was flat. No badge showing, no uniform, just a man who knocked a woman out of her wheelchair. He paused. I saw the whole thing. Something shifted in Wade's expression. A flicker of uncertainty quickly buried. "You saw her fall. That chair's a piece of junk. She loses her balance all the time." Sarah's voice cut through the air. "He's lying." Wade shot her a look that could have stripped paint. "Shut up. Don't talk to her like that." The words came from Marcus, but there was something underneath them now. Something cold. Wade turned back to face him fully. For the first time, he seemed to really look at the man in front of him. The lean build, the economical posture, the way his weight was balanced, ready to shift in any direction. And the dog. The dog hadn't made a sound since this began. That was wrong. Dogs barked, dogs growled, dogs pulled at leashes and showed their teeth when they sensed tension. This dog did nothing. He simply stood there, absolutely motionless, his eyes locked on Wade with an intensity that felt almost human. "Nice pet," Wade said, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. "He's not a pet." "What is he then?" Marcus didn't answer. He didn't need to. Ghost's body spoke for him. The perfect stillness, the controlled breathing, the way his muscles coiled beneath his fur like springs waiting to release. This was a weapon. A living, breathing weapon held in check by nothing but the will of the man holding his leash. Wade's hand moved closer to his gun. "I wouldn't," Marcus said. "Are you threatening an officer?" "I'm stating a fact." Marcus's eyes never left Wade's face. "You reach for that weapon and I can't guarantee what happens next. Your dog attacks a cop, he gets put down. You know that, right? He won't attack unless I tell him to, and I won't tell him to unless you give me a reason." Marcus tilted his head slightly. The question is, are you going to give me a reason? The silence stretched between them, thick and heavy. Sarah watched from the ground, her heart hammering against her ribs. She'd seen men face off before. Ryan had been a deputy. She knew how these confrontations usually went: the posturing, the escalation, the eventual backing down or explosion. This was different. Wade was scared. She could see it now beneath the bluster and the threats. He was scared of the man in front of him, or maybe of the dog, or maybe of both. And Wade Brennan didn't scare easily. "Who are you?" Wade asked finally. "Nobody important." "You military—" Marcus didn't answer. Wade nodded slowly, like he'd confirmed something. Yeah, I can always tell. You guys walk different. Talk different." He forced a smile. "Look, brother, I don't want trouble. This woman and I have history. She's been harassing my family, making accusations. I came to talk to her and things got heated, that's all." "That's not what I saw." "Then maybe you didn't see what you think you saw." Marcus looked at Sarah. "You okay?" She shook her head. "He pushed me, on purpose, because I have evidence that his brother killed my fiancée and he covered it up." Wade's face contorted. "That's a lie. Is it?" Marcus turned back to him. "Because you look pretty desperate for someone who's got nothing to hide. I don't have to explain myself to you." "No, you don't." Marcus paused. "But you might want to explain yourself to whoever's watching that." He nodded toward the parking lot. Wade turned. A woman sat in a parked car at the edge of the lot, maybe 50 yards away. She had a phone in her hand, held up toward them. Even from this distance, there was no mistaking what she was doing. Wade's face went pale. "Who is that?" "I don't know," Marcus said, "but I'm guessing she's got the same view I had." For a long moment, Wade didn't move. His mind was clearly racing, calculating, trying to find a way out of the corner he'd backed himself into. Then his shoulders dropped. "Fine," he muttered. "Fine. We're done here." He looked at Sarah, and there was pure venom in his eyes. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is," Marcus said. Wade's gaze snapped to him. "What? You heard me? You're going to walk away. You're going to leave this woman alone. And if I ever hear about you coming near her again, that video's going to be the least of your problems. You think you can threaten me? You think you can just show up and—" Ghost moved. It wasn't much. Just a single step forward. But the effect was instantaneous. Wade stumbled backward, his hand flying to his gun, his face draining of color. The dog stopped. He didn't growl, didn't bare his teeth. He simply stood there, one step closer than he'd been before, his eyes never leaving Wade's face. "I'm not threatening you," Marcus said quietly. "I'm telling you how this is going to go. You can accept it, or you can find out what happens when you don't." Wade's hand trembled on his weapon. He didn't draw it. Some part of him, some survival instinct buried deep, understood that drawing that gun would be the last mistake he ever made. "This is wrong," Wade said. His voice was shaking now. "You can't do this. You can't just intimidate a police officer and walk away. You're not a police officer right now. You're a man who assaulted a disabled woman in a public park." Marcus's voice was steady as stone. "And I'm a witness." Wade opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away. His steps were fast, uneven, lacking the confident swagger he'd arrived with. He didn't look back. He just kept walking until he reached the parking lot, climbed into his truck, and peeled out onto the road. The sound of his engine faded into the distance. Marcus waited until silence returned to the trail. Then he knelt beside Sarah, keeping his movements slow and predictable. "Can you sit up?" She nodded, though her arms were still shaking. With his help, she managed to push herself into a sitting position. Pain flared through her shoulder, but she gritted her teeth against it. "Thank you," she said. "I don't know what he would have done if you hadn't." "Don't think about that." Marcus retrieved her wheelchair, checking it quickly for damage. One wheel wobbled slightly, but it would hold. "Can you transfer?" "I think so." He positioned the chair beside her, then stepped back, giving her space to work. She appreciated that. So many people assumed she needed to be lifted, handled like cargo. This man understood that she had her own way of doing things. She gripped the chair's frame, took a breath, and hauled herself up in one practiced motion. Her shoulder screamed in protest, but she made it. She settled into the seat, hands trembling, heart still racing. Ghost approached slowly, his posture finally softening from combat readiness to something gentler. He sniffed her hand once, then sat down beside the wheelchair, positioning himself between her and the path Wade had taken. Sarah looked at the dog, then at Marcus. "What kind of dog is he? The kind that doesn't forget?" She almost laughed. Almost. "Who are you?" she asked. "Marcus Cole." "That's not what I meant." He was quiet for a moment. Then he sighed. "Former Navy SEAL. Got out 18 months ago. Moved back here because I didn't have anywhere else to go." He paused. "Ghost was military, too. Retired. We kind of take care of each other now." Sarah nodded slowly. She'd known men like this. Ryan had served before joining the sheriff's department. He'd had friends who walked the same way, talked the same way, carried the same weight behind their eyes. "I'm Sarah Mitchell," she said. "My fiancé was Deputy Ryan Mitchell. He died 2 years ago." "I heard about that. Car accident." "It wasn't an accident." Her voice hardened. "Wade's brother ran us off the road. He was drunk out of his mind. Ryan died on impact. I woke up in the hospital with a severed spine and a story that didn't make sense." Marcus studied her face. "You've been investigating." "For 2 years. Wade's been covering for his brother the whole time. The blood test disappeared. Witnesses were pressured. The whole thing was buried." "And you have proof. I have everything." Sarah's hands tightened on her wheels. "Original documents, recordings, witness statements from people who are ready to talk. I've been building this case for 24 months and Wade knows I'm close." Marcus looked toward the parking lot. The woman with the phone was still there watching them. "Who is she?" "I don't know, but I'd like to find out." Marcus nodded. "Wait here." He walked toward the parking lot. Ghost falling into step beside him. Sarah watched them go, her mind still spinning from everything that had just happened. She'd expected Wade to escalate. She'd known he was getting desperate, but she hadn't expected him to attack her in broad daylight in a public park. And she definitely hadn't expected a stranger and his dog to save her life. The woman in the car stepped out as Marcus approached. She was in her early 40s, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and sharp, intelligent eyes that missed nothing. "Elena Ruiz," she said, extending her hand. "I'm a journalist with the Willow Creek Herald." Marcus shook her hand. "You got all that?" "Every second." She held up her phone. "I've been following Deputy Brennan for 3 weeks. I knew he was dirty, but I couldn't prove it." She glanced toward Sarah. "Until now." "What are you going to do with the video?" Elena smiled. It was the smile of someone who'd been waiting a very long time for exactly this moment. "I'm going to burn his world down." Back at the wheelchair, Sarah sat motionless, her eyes on the river. The water moved past, indifferent to everything that had just happened. Somewhere upstream it had started as snow on a mountain peak. Somewhere downstream it would join a larger river, then an even larger one, until finally it reached the sea. Things moved on. That was the nature of the world. But some things shouldn't move on. Some things should be held accountable. Some things should be dragged into the light and made to answer for what they'd done. Ryan had died trying to expose the truth. Sarah wasn't going to let that sacrifice mean nothing. Marcus returned with Elena, and the three of them talked, while Ghost stood guard, his eyes scanning the trail in both directions. Sarah learned that Elena had been investigating corruption in the sheriff's department for months, that she had sources inside, that Wade was just the tip of an iceberg that went much deeper than anyone suspected. And Sarah learned that the video Elena had captured wasn't just evidence of assault. It was the key to everything. "If we can get him for this," Elena said, "his credibility is destroyed. Everything he's touched for the past 15 years becomes questionable. Every case, every arrest, every piece of evidence he handled. The whole thing unravels." "He'll fight back," Sarah said. "He'll claim I attacked him first. He'll say Marcus and his dog threatened him." "Let him." Elena's eyes glinted. "I have the whole thing on video, every second, every word. The jury will see exactly what happened." Sarah looked at Marcus. "Why did you get involved?" "You don't know me. You could have walked away." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I've seen too many people walk away when someone needed help," he said finally. "I'm done being one of them." Ghost pressed closer to Sarah's legs, his body warm against her knees. She reached down and touched his head, feeling the softness of his fur beneath her fingers. "Thank you," she whispered. The dog's tail moved once. Just once. But it was enough. As they left the park that evening, Sarah didn't look back at the place where she'd fallen. She didn't need to. That spot would always be part of her story now, the place where everything changed, where a stranger became an ally, and a buried truth finally started clawing its way toward the surface. But it wasn't the ending. It was just the beginning. And somewhere in town, Wade Brennan was sitting in his truck, staring at his shaking hands, realizing for the first time that the walls were finally closing in. His phone buzzed. A text from his brother. "What happened?" "Someone's asking questions." Wade didn't answer. He couldn't answer. Because for the first time in 15 years, he didn't have a plan. The dog's eyes haunted him. That absolute stillness. That controlled menace. He'd faced down criminals. He'd faced down angry mobs. He'd faced down men with guns who wanted him dead. But he'd never faced anything like that. And somehow he knew this was just the start. Marcus pulled his truck into the gravel driveway and killed the engine. The cabin sat dark against the tree line, just the way he'd left it. He glanced at Sarah in the passenger seat, then at Ghost in the back, who hadn't taken his eyes off the road behind them for the entire drive. "You sure about this?" Sarah asked. "You're not going home tonight. Not after what happened." "I can take care of myself." "I know you can." Marcus opened his door. "But you shouldn't have to. Not tonight." He came around to her side and pulled the wheelchair from the truck bed. Sarah transferred herself without help, her movements practiced despite the pain in her shoulder. Ghost jumped down and immediately began circling the perimeter nose to the ground, ears rotating. "He always like this?" Sarah asked. "Only when something's wrong." Sarah's hands tightened on her wheels. "You think Wade followed us?" "No, but I think he's not done." Marcus unlocked the cabin door and held it open. "Ghost will let us know if anyone comes close." Inside the cabin was spare but clean, a kitchen, a living area, a bedroom in the back. Nothing fancy, nothing personal, the home of a man who hadn't figured out how to live yet. Sarah wheeled herself to the kitchen table and stopped. Her hands were shaking again. She hated that they were shaking. "I need to call Elena," she said. "We need to figure out next steps. First, you need to breathe." Sarah looked up at him. "I've been breathing for 2 years. Breathing doesn't fix anything. Marcus pulled out a chair and sat across from her. Ghost came inside and lay down by the door, positioning himself where he could see both the entrance and the windows. "Tell me everything," Marcus said. "From the beginning." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she started talking. Ryan had been a good man, a good deputy, the kind of cop who actually believed in protecting people, not just enforcing laws. They'd been engaged for 8 months when he started noticing things. Paperwork that didn't add up. Cases that disappeared. People who should have been prosecuted walking free. He'd started asking questions. Quietly at first. Then not so quietly. "He told me he was onto something big," Sarah said. "A network. Wade was the center of it, but there were others, other deputies, people in the county government, maybe even the DA's office. Did he have proof? He was gathering it. He had a file. Names, dates, amounts. Everyone Wade had protected, everyone who'd paid for that protection." Sarah's voice cracked. "He was going to take it to the state police. He didn't trust anyone local." "What happened to the file?" "Gone. The night of the accident, someone broke into our house, took his laptop, his backup drives, everything." She laughed bitterly. "The police said it was probably unrelated. A burglary of opportunity. But you didn't believe that. I knew it was connected. I knew it the moment I woke up in the hospital and they told me Ryan was dead." Marcus leaned forward. "How did you rebuild the case?" "Slowly. Carefully." Sarah met his eyes. "I couldn't walk anymore, but I could still think. I could still make phone calls. I could still convince people to talk to me." "Who talked?" "Witnesses. People Wade had intimidated. People who'd been waiting for someone to ask the right questions." She pulled her phone from her pocket. "I have recordings, statements, financial records that one of the bank employees smuggled out. And the blood test." Sarah's expression hardened. "A nurse at the hospital. She'd seen the original results before they disappeared. She remembered what they said. When I approached her, she was terrified, but she agreed to write it down, sign it, get it notarized. She put her name on it. She did. Because she knew what Wade had done was wrong. Because she was tired of being afraid." Marcus sat back in his chair. Ghost lifted his head briefly, then settled again. "You've been building this for 2 years, Marcus said. "Why hasn't anyone acted on it? Because no one believes me." Sarah's voice broke again. "I'm the grieving fiancé, the woman in the wheelchair, the one who can't let go. Everyone looks at me and sees someone who's lost touch with reality." "Elena believes you." "Elena's the first journalist who actually looked at the evidence. Everyone else dismissed me before I finished my first sentence." Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Show me." Sarah hesitated. "Why?" "Because I want to understand what we're up against." She studied his face, searching for something. Doubt. Pity. The condescension she'd grown so used to seeing. She found none of it. She pulled a folder from her bag. "I keep copies everywhere, different locations, different formats. If something happens to me, the evidence survives." Marcus took the folder and opened it. Inside were pages of documents, bank statements, phone records, signed statements, photographs. He read in silence for several minutes. Sarah watched his face, trying to gauge his reaction. Finally, he looked up. "This is solid," he said. "This is more than solid. This could bring down half the county." "I know." "And Wade knows you have this. He suspects. He's been trying to find out how much for months. That's why he came after you today." Sarah nodded. "I think I'm running out of time. He's getting desperate." Marcus closed the folder. "Then we need to move faster than he does." Ghost suddenly lifted his head. His ears rotated toward the front door. A low sound rumbled in his chest. Marcus was on his feet instantly. "Stay here." He moved to the window, keeping to the side, peering out into the darkness. Headlights were coming up the road. Moving slowly. Too slowly. "Someone's here," he said. Sarah's heart hammered. "Wade, I don't know yet." The vehicle stopped at the end of the driveway. The headlights went dark. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a figure stepped out. Marcus's hand moved to the weapon he kept by the door. Ghost had risen to his feet, body coiled, ready. The figure walked toward the cabin. Female. Alone. Moving with purpose. Marcus relaxed slightly. "It's Elena." He opened the door before she could knock. Elena stepped inside quickly, her face flushed, her breathing rapid. "We have a problem," she said. "What kind of problem?" "Wade's making calls. A lot of calls." Elena pulled out her phone, showing them a screen full of text messages. "I have a source inside the department. She says Wade came in an hour ago, went straight to the records room and started pulling files." "What files?" "Everything connected to Ryan Mitchell's accident. And everything connected to you." Elena looked at Sarah. "He's trying to build a case against you. Harassment, stalking, defamation. He's going to try to have you arrested." Sarah's blood ran cold. "He can't do that. I haven't done anything wrong." "He doesn't need you to have done anything wrong. He just needs enough paperwork to make it look like you did." Elena's voice was urgent. "And once you're in custody, anything can happen." Marcus stepped forward. "How much time do we have?" "I don't know. Could be tonight, could be tomorrow." Elena shook her head. "But it's coming. And once it starts, everything you've built disappears." Sarah's hands gripped her wheels until her knuckles went white. 2 years. 2 years of work. 2 years of fighting. And it could all be erased by one corrupt man with the right paperwork. "No," she said. Marcus looked at her. "No what? No, I'm not going to let him win?" Sarah's voice was steady now, the fear replaced by something harder. "I didn't survive that crash. I didn't spend 2 years in this chair. I didn't lose Ryan just to give up now." "What do you want to do?" Sarah looked at Elena. "How fast can you run a story?" Elena blinked. "What kind of story?" "Everything. All of it. The blood test, the cover-up, the bribes, the network." Sarah leaned forward. "You wanted to burn his world down. Let's do it tonight." Elena hesitated. "I need to verify the sources. I need to make sure everything holds up." "Then verify fast. Because if we wait until tomorrow, there might not be anything left to verify." Marcus moved to the window again, checking the road. "She's right. So Wade's not going to stop. The only way to beat him is to get ahead of him." Elena looked between them. Then she nodded. Okay, let's do this." She sat down at the table, pulling out her laptop. "Sarah, I need everything you have. Every document, every recording, every name." Sarah handed over the folder. "It's all there. And I need you on record, on camera, telling your story from the beginning." Sarah's throat tightened. She'd never told the whole story. Not to anyone. Not even to herself. But she nodded. "Let's do it." For the next 2 hours, they worked. Elena recorded Sarah's testimony. They organized documents. They cross-referenced dates and names. Ghost maintained his post by the door, alert to every sound outside. Marcus made coffee. He checked the perimeter twice. He kept his weapon within arm's reach. At 11 o'clock, Elena's phone rang. She answered, listened, and her face went pale. "What?" Marcus asked. "That was my source." Elena's voice was barely above a whisper. Wade just filed an emergency petition. They're issuing an arrest warrant for Sarah. Sarah felt the world tilt. On what grounds? Criminal harassment, stalking, making terroristic threats. Elena swallowed. They're saying you threatened to kill Wade's brother. That's a lie. I know. But the warrant's been signed. They're coming. Marcus moved to the window. In the distance he could see lights on the main road, moving toward them. How long? He asked. Minutes, maybe less. Sarah's chest constricted. This was it. This was how it ended. Not with justice, but with handcuffs and lies, and Wade Brennan smiling as they took her away. No, Marcus said. Everyone looked at him. No, he repeated. This doesn't end like this. What are you going to do? Elena asked. They have a warrant. The warrant's based on false evidence. Wade manufactured the whole thing. Marcus turned to face them. And I know someone who can prove it. Who? Marcus pulled out his phone. Captain James Holloway. He runs the sheriff's department. Elena shook her head. We can't trust anyone in that department. Wade has people everywhere. Holloway's clean. I've known him since I was a kid. He was friends with my father. Marcus was already dialing. He doesn't know what's been happening under his nose, but he will. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a voice answered, gruff, half asleep. Cole, do you know what time it is? Captain, I need you to listen to me. Something's happening tonight, and if you don't intervene, an innocent woman is going to be arrested for crimes she didn't commit. A pause. What are you talking about? Deputy Wade Brennan. He's been running a protection racket for years. He covered up the death of Deputy Ryan Mitchell, and right now he's trying to silence the one witness who can expose everything. Another pause. Longer this time. That's a serious accusation. I have proof. Documents, recordings, eyewitness testimony. Marcus glanced at Sarah. And I have a journalist who's ready to publish everything tomorrow morning. But if you let Wade arrest this woman tonight, the whole story gets buried. The lights on the road were getting closer. Where are you? Holloway asked. My cabin, off Route 7. Don't move. I'm on my way. The line went dead. Elena looked at Marcus. You trust him? With my life? That might be exactly what we're betting. The lights turned on to Marcus's road. Ghost began to growl low and continuous. They're here, Marcus said. Sarah's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She could hear the vehicles now, tires on gravel engines rumbling. How many 2-3? This was really happening. Marcus moved to the door. Elena, keep recording. Whatever happens, don't stop. What are you going to do? Buy us time. He stepped outside Ghost at his side. The cold air hit his face. 3 vehicles had pulled into the driveway. Patrol cars. Lights flashing, but no sirens. Wade Brennan stepped out of the lead car. He was in uniform now. Official. Marcus Cole. Wade's voice carried across the distance. We're here to execute an arrest warrant for Sarah Mitchell. Is she inside? She is. Then step aside and let us do our job. Marcus didn't move. The warrant's fraudulent, Wade. We both know it. I don't know what you're talking about. You manufactured evidence. You're trying to silence a witness. Marcus's voice was calm, but it carried. And I have documentation of everything you've done for the past 15 years. Wade's confidence flickered. Just for a moment. You're obstructing justice. I'm preventing injustice. The other deputies had stepped out of their vehicles. 4 of them total. Their hands rested on their weapons, uncertain. Last chance, Cole. Move aside or we'll move you. Ghost's growl deepened. His body lowered into a ready position. Try it, Marcus said. For a long, terrible moment, no one moved. Then new headlights appeared on the road, coming fast. Everyone turned to look. A truck pulled into the driveway. Not a patrol car. A personal vehicle. Captain James Holloway stepped out. He was in his 60s, gray-haired and weathered with the bearing of a man who'd spent his life in law enforcement. He walked toward the confrontation with measured steps, taking in the scene. "What the hell is going on here?" he demanded. Wade straightened. "Captain, we're executing a valid warrant." At midnight, at a private residence, Holloway's eyes swept across his deputies. "Everyone stand down, now." "Sir, this woman is dangerous. She's been making threats and—" "I said stand down, deputy." The words cracked like a whip. The other deputies immediately stepped back. Wade's jaw tightened, but he didn't move. Holloway turned to Marcus. "You said you have proof." "Inside." Holloway nodded. "Show me." He walked past Wade, without another word. Marcus followed Ghost, maintaining his position, until the captain was safely inside. In the cabin, Elena was still recording. Sarah sat at the table, pale, but composed. Holloway looked at her for a long moment. Then he pulled out a chair and sat down. "Tell me everything," he said. And Sarah began to talk. Outside, Wade Brennan stood in the cold, watching the cabin windows. His hands were clenched at his sides. His carefully constructed world was crumbling, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. His phone buzzed. A text from his brother. "What's happening? I'm seeing police at your location." Wade stared at the message. His brother. The one who'd started all of this. The one he'd been protecting for 2 years. He typed back 3 words. "It's over." Then he looked at his deputies. 3 of them were part of his network. The 4th was new, untouched, innocent. The 3 met his eyes. He saw fear in them now. The fear of men who knew they were going down. "What do we do?" one of them whispered. Wade didn't answer. He didn't have an answer. Inside the cabin, Captain Holloway finished reading the documents. His face had grown progressively darker with each page. "How long have you had this?" he asked Sarah. 2 years. "Why didn't you come to me?" "Would you have believed me?" Holloway was silent. The truth hung between them, ugly and unavoidable. He wouldn't have believed her. A grieving woman in a wheelchair making accusations against a decorated deputy. He would have dismissed her just like everyone else. "I'm sorry," he said finally. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. 2 words. 2 simple words. But she'd been waiting 2 years to hear them. "What happens now?" she asked. Holloway stood up. "Now I do my job." He walked to the door and opened it. The cold rushed in. "Deputy Brennan," he called out. "You're relieved of duty effective immediately. Hand over your badge and weapon." Wade's face contorted. "You can't do this." "I just did." "You don't understand. She's lying. She's been harassing my family. I've seen the evidence, Wade." Holloway's voice was heavy. "All of it, including the original blood test from your brother's DUI." The color drained from Wade's face. That's not... Your badge. Your weapon. Now!" For a moment, it looked like Wade might resist. His hand twitched toward his gun. Ghost emerged from the cabin, positioning himself beside Marcus, eyes locked on the deputy. Wade's hand fell away. Slowly, mechanically, he unclipped his badge and removed his weapon from its holster. He handed them to Holloway. "This isn't over," he said, but his voice had lost all its power. "Yes, it is." Holloway turned to the other deputies. "Martinez, Chen, take Deputy Brennan into custody." 2 of the deputies moved forward. Wade's eyes went wide. "You're arresting me. Pending investigation. You have the right to remain silent." As they put the handcuffs on him, Wade looked at Sarah through the cabin window. His eyes burned with hatred. She met his gaze without flinching. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. The words faded as they led him to a patrol car. The door closed. The engine started. And Wade Brennan disappeared into the night. Marcus stood beside Sarah's wheelchair, watching the taillights fade. "It's really happening," Sarah whispered. "It's really happening." She reached up and took his hand. Her fingers were cold, but her grip was strong. Ghost moved closer, pressing his warm body against her legs. He looked up at her with those amber eyes, and she could have sworn he understood everything that had just happened. Elena lowered her camera. "I got it all. Every second." Holloway walked back toward them, his face grim. "This is going to get ugly before it gets better. Wade had a lot of friends. Some of them are going to try to protect themselves." "Let them try," Sarah said. Holloway looked at her. Really looked at her. "Deputy Mitchell was a good man," he said quietly. "He deserved better than what happened to him." Sarah's throat tightened. "Yes, he did. I'm going to make this right, whatever it takes." Holloway put on his hat. "You have my word." He walked to his truck, climbed in, and drove away. Silence settled over the cabin. The kind of silence that comes after storms when the world is catching its breath. Marcus squeezed Sarah's hand. "You did it," he said. Sarah shook her head. "We did it." Ghost's tail moved once, just once, but it was enough. The call came at 6 in the morning. Sarah hadn't slept. She'd spent the night at Marcus's cabin going through documents with Elena, preparing for what came next. Ghost had stayed by her side the entire time, his head resting on her knee whenever she stopped moving. Her phone buzzed on the table. Unknown number. She answered anyway. "Miss Mitchell." A woman's voice. Nervous. Barely above a whisper. "Who is this? My name is Teresa Brennan. I'm Wade's wife." Sarah's blood turned to ice. She looked at Marcus, who had stopped mid-step across the room. "Why are you calling me?" "Because I know what he did." Teresa's voice cracked. "I've known for 2 years, and I can't stay silent anymore." Sarah's hand tightened on the phone. "What do you mean?" "The night Ryan died. Wade came home covered in mud. His hands were shaking. He told me there'd been an accident, that his brother had made a mistake, that he had to fix it." Marcus moved closer, leaning in to hear. "I asked him what kind of mistake. He told me to never ask again." Teresa was crying now. "I should have said something. I should have gone to the police, but I was scared. He said if I ever talked, he'd make sure I lost everything. The house, the kids, everything." But Sarah's throat was so tight she could barely speak. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because he called me from jail last night. He told me to destroy certain files in his office. Bank statements, phone records, a list of names." Teresa took a shaky breath. "I didn't destroy them. I copied them instead." Elena grabbed her notepad, writing furiously. "Teresa," Sarah said carefully, "what was on those files?" "Everything. Every payment. Every favor. Every person who paid Wade to make their problems go away." Teresa's voice dropped even lower. "Including the judge who signed the warrant for your arrest last night." The room went silent. Marcus's jaw tightened. "The judge was in on it. Judge Harrison," Teresa said. "He's been taking money from Wade for 8 years. He was the one who dismissed the charges against Wade's brother. He was the one who made sure the blood test disappeared from evidence." Sarah felt dizzy. She'd known the corruption went deep. But a judge? Teresa, can you get those files to us? I already have. I'm sending them to the journalist's email right now. A pause. Miss Mitchell. Yes. I'm sorry for everything. I know it doesn't make up for what happened, but I'm sorry. The line went dead. Elena's laptop pinged. New email, attachment. She opened it. Her face went white. Oh my God. What? Marcus moved behind her. It's not just Judge Harrison. Elena scrolled through the files. There's a county commissioner, 2 city councilmen, the chief of police in the next county over. She looked up at Sarah. This isn't a small-town cover-up. This is a network, a whole system designed to protect people with money. Sarah wheeled herself to the table. How many names? Dozens. Maybe more. Elena kept scrolling. And there are payments going back over a decade, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Ghost lifted his head, sensing the shift in energy. His ears rotated toward the front door. Marcus noticed. What is it, boy? The dog rose to his feet. A low growl started in his chest. Someone's coming, Marcus said. He moved to the window. A vehicle was approaching fast, kicking up dust on the gravel road. Elena, send those files to your editor, now. Already doing it. And copy them to me, and to Captain Holloway, everyone you can think of. The vehicle pulled into the driveway. Not a police car this time. A black SUV with tinted windows. Marcus's hand went to his weapon. Sarah, get away from the door. Who is it? I don't know, but I don't like it. The SUV door opened. A man stepped out. Tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that cost more than most people made in a month. He walked toward the cabin with the confidence of someone who owned everything he touched. Marcus didn't recognize him, but Ghost did. The dog's growl intensified. His hackles rose. Whatever this man represented, Ghost wanted no part of it. The man stopped at the porch steps. Marcus Cole. Who's asking? My name is Raymond Cross. I'm an attorney. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I represent certain interested parties who would like to resolve this situation quietly. What situation? The unfortunate misunderstanding involving Deputy Brennan. Cross's voice was smooth, practiced. My clients believe that everyone involved would benefit from a more diplomatic approach. Sarah wheeled herself into view. There's no misunderstanding. Wade Brennan covered up my fiancé's murder. Cross's smile didn't waver. Miss Mitchell, I was hoping we could speak privately. Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of them. Very well. Cross clasped his hands behind his back. My clients are prepared to offer you a substantial settlement, enough to ensure your comfort for the rest of your life. In exchange, you would agree to drop all accusations and sign a non-disclosure agreement. Sarah stared at him. You're trying to buy my silence. I'm offering you an opportunity. The legal process is long and exhausting. Even with evidence, cases can take years. Witnesses change their stories. Documents get lost. Cross tilted his head. Wouldn't it be easier to simply accept compensation and move on with your life? My fiancé is dead. Yes, and nothing will bring him back. But you can still have a future. Cross pulled an envelope from his jacket. $3 million, deposited today. All you have to do is sign. Marcus stepped forward. Get off my property. Cross looked at him with mild annoyance. Mr. Cole, I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here to prevent it. For who the judge? The commissioners, all the people who've been taking bribes for the past decade. Something flickered in Cross's eyes. Just for a moment. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. We have the files. Marcus took another step closer. Every name, every payment, every crime. And in about 10 minutes, it's going to be in the hands of every major news outlet in the state. Cross's composure cracked. You're making a serious mistake. No, your clients made the mistake, years ago, and now they're going to pay for it. Ghost moved to Marcus's side, his body low, ready to spring. The attorney looked at the dog and for the first time showed genuine fear. You have no idea what you're dealing with, Cross said. His voice had lost its smoothness. These people have resources, connections. They will destroy you. Let them try. Cross's jaw tightened. He looked at Sarah, then at Elena, then back at Marcus. This isn't over, he said. You're the second person to tell me that in 24 hours. Marcus's voice was flat. The first one is sitting in a jail cell. You want to be next. Cross didn't answer. He turned and walked back to his SUV. The engine started. The vehicle reversed out of the driveway and disappeared down the road. Elena let out a breath she'd been holding. Who was that damage control? Marcus watched until the SUV was out of sight. Someone's scared. Someone with a lot more to lose than Wade Brennan. Sarah's hands were trembling. $3 million. Enough to change her life forever. All she had to do was stay quiet. I almost considered it, she whispered. Marcus looked at her. What? For a second? Just for a second I thought about what that money could do. Tears streamed down her face. And then I thought about Ryan. How he died trying to do the right thing. How he could have looked the other way and lived. She wiped her eyes. I won't betray him. Not for any amount of money. Marcus knelt beside her wheelchair. You're stronger than you know. I don't feel strong. I feel terrified. That's what courage is, being terrified and doing it anyway. Ghost pressed his nose against Sarah's hand. She looked down at him, at those amber eyes that seemed to understand everything. What happens now? She asked. Elena closed her laptop. Now we go public. The files are sent. My editor's already working on the story. By tonight, everyone in the state will know what's been happening in Willow Creek. And then we let the chips fall where they may. The morning passed in a blur of phone calls and preparations. Captain Holloway called twice, updating them on the investigation. More arrests were being made. Wade's network was crumbling faster than anyone had anticipated. At noon, Elena's story went live. The headline was simple. Sheriff's deputy led decade-long corruption ring. Judge officials implicated. Within an hour, it had been picked up by every major outlet in the region. By 2 o'clock, national news was covering it. By 3, state investigators were descending on Willow Creek. Sarah watched the coverage from Marcus's laptop, Ghost's head still resting on her knee. She saw her own name mentioned. Ryan's name. The accident that wasn't an accident. It's really happening, she said, again, because she still couldn't believe it. Marcus sat beside her. How do you feel? I don't know. Empty. Full. Everything at once. She shook her head. I spent 2 years fighting for this moment, and now that it's here, I don't know what to do next. You don't have to know. Not yet. His phone rang. He looked at the screen and frowned. Who is it? Holloway. He answered. Listened. His face changed. We'll be right there. He hung up. What happened? Sarah asked. Judge Harrison. He tried to flee. Got into a car chase with state police. Marcus's voice was grim. He crashed his car into a guardrail on Highway 7. He's in the hospital. Critical condition. Elena grabbed her bag. I need to get down there. Go. We'll follow. Elena rushed out. Her car engine started, then faded as she drove away. Sarah sat in silence, processing. A judge. A man who had sworn to uphold the law. Now lying in a hospital bed because he'd rather die than face the consequences of his crimes. "It's not over," she said quietly. "No, but it's closer." Marcus helped her into the truck. Ghost jumped into the back, immediately alert, scanning for threats. They drove toward town, toward the chaos that was unfolding. The hospital parking lot was a circus. News vans, police cars, crowds of onlookers trying to figure out what was happening. Marcus parked at the edge of the lot, away from the commotion. "Stay in the truck. I'll find out what's happening." "I'm coming with you. Sarah, Ryan died because of these people. I have a right to see this through." Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. He retrieved her wheelchair from the truck bed. She transferred herself, ignoring the lingering pain in her shoulder. Ghost jumped down and positioned himself beside her, a living shield. They moved through the crowd. People stared at Sarah, recognizing her from the news coverage. Some whispered, some pointed. A few called out words of support. She ignored all of it. Inside the hospital, Holloway was waiting. His face was haggard, lined with exhaustion, and something darker. "How bad?" Marcus asked. "Harrison's in surgery. They don't know if he'll make it." Holloway rubbed his eyes. "But that's not why I called you." "What is it?" Holloway pulled an evidence bag from his pocket. Inside was a phone. "We recovered this from Harrison's car. Before he crashed, he was on a call." Holloway met Sarah's eyes. "He was talking to someone about you." Sarah's stomach dropped. "About me?" "They were discussing how to handle the situation. Harrison said the money didn't work, so they needed to try something else." Holloway's voice was heavy. "Something more permanent," and the words hung in the air like poison. "They were going to kill me," Sarah said flatly. "We don't know that for certain." "Yes, we do." Sarah's voice didn't waver. "That's what something more permanent means, Captain. They were going to do to me what they did to Ryan." Holloway didn't argue. He couldn't. "We're tracing the call," he said, "trying to identify who Harrison was talking to. But whoever it is, they're being careful, using encrypted lines, burner phones." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Someone higher up the chain?" "Much higher. Harrison was a big fish, but he wasn't the biggest." Holloway looked around, lowering his voice. "There are names in those files we haven't released yet. People with serious power. People who will do anything to stay out of prison." "Then we need to expose them. All of them." "We're working on it. But these things take time. Legal procedures. Proper channels." Sarah shook her head. "Time is exactly what they want. Time to destroy evidence. Time to intimidate witnesses. Time to make me disappear." Holloway didn't have an answer for that. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from Elena. "Harrison just died on the operating table. They're saying heart failure. But something doesn't feel right." He showed the message to Sarah. "Heart failure," she repeated. "How convenient. I think someone didn't want Harrison talking." Sarah's voice was hard. "And I think whoever that someone is, they're not going to stop until everyone who can expose them is silenced." Ghost pressed closer to her leg. His ears were back, his body tense. He could feel the danger, even if he couldn't understand it. Marcus made a decision. "We need to get you somewhere safe. Somewhere they can't find you. Where they have connections everywhere. Police, courts, government. Not everywhere." Marcus pulled out his phone. "I know people. People who don't show up in any database. People who owe me favors. Military contacts. Something like that." He made a call, speaking in low tones, using words Sarah didn't understand. Codes. References. the language of men who lived in shadows. When he hung up, his face was set. "Pack whatever you need. We leave in an hour." "Where are we going?" "I can't tell you. Not yet. The less you know, the safer you are." Sarah wanted to argue. She wanted to demand answers. But she looked at Marcus, at the determination in his eyes, at the way Ghost had positioned himself between her and the rest of the world. These people had saved her life. More than once. She trusted them. "Okay," she said. They left the hospital through a side entrance, avoiding the media circus. Ghost moved ahead, checking corners, scanning for threats. Marcus walked beside Sarah's wheelchair, his hand never far from his weapon. The parking lot was quieter on this side. Their truck sat alone near the edge. They were 50 feet away when Marcus stopped. "What is it?" Sarah asked. He didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the truck. "The door's open." Sarah looked. The passenger door was slightly ajar. They'd closed it. She was certain they'd closed it. Ghost's growl broke the silence. Low. Dangerous. "Stay here," Marcus said. He approached the truck slowly, his weapon drawn. Ghost moved with him, body low, ready to strike. 10 feet away. 5 feet. Marcus reached the door, pulled it open. A body tumbled out. Teresa Brennan, Wade's wife, the woman who had called that morning. Her eyes were open. Unseeing, a single bullet hole in her forehead, and pinned to her chest was a note. Marcus pulled it free with shaking hands. 3 words written in neat block letters. "You're next. Sarah." Ghost howled. A long, mournful sound that echoed across the parking lot. Sarah sat frozen in her wheelchair, staring at the body of a woman who had tried to do the right thing. A woman who had paid for it with her life. Marcus was already on his phone. "Holloway, get to the south parking lot. Now." But Sarah wasn't listening anymore. She was looking at Teresa's face, at the fear frozen there, at the life that had been snuffed out because she dared to tell the truth. This was what happened to people who stood up. This was the price of courage. And Sarah knew with absolute certainty that she was next. Unless she ran, unless she hid, unless she gave up everything Ryan had died for. She closed her eyes, breathed, felt Ghost's warmth against her legs, and made her choice. "I'm not running," she said. Marcus looked at her. "Sarah, they killed her because she helped me. If I run now, she died for nothing." Sarah's voice was steady, stronger than it had any right to be. "I'm not going to let that happen. I'm not going to let any of them die for nothing." "They will kill you." "Then they'll have to kill me." Sarah opened her eyes. "But they're not going to silence me. Not anymore." Ghost pressed closer. His amber eyes looked up at her with something that might have been understanding. And in that moment, Sarah Mitchell stopped being a victim. She became something far more dangerous. A witness who refused to be silenced. The FBI arrived at dawn. 3 black SUVs rolled into Willow Creek like a storm front carrying federal agents who answered to no one in the county. Sarah watched them from the window of the safe house, where Marcus had taken her a cabin owned by a friend who asked no questions and kept no records. "They're here for the files," Marcus said, standing beside her. "Teresa's murder changed everything. This isn't a local matter anymore." Ghost lay at Sarah's feet, his eyes tracking every movement outside. He hadn't left her side since they'd found Teresa's body. Something in the dog understood that the danger had escalated beyond anything they'd faced before. Sarah's phone rang. "Holloway, they want to talk to you?" he said without preamble. "The FBI. They need your testimony." "Where?" "County building." 1 hour. Sarah hung up. Her hands weren't shaking anymore. Something had hardened inside her after seeing Teresa's body. Fear had burned away, leaving only determination. "You ready for this?" Marcus asked. "No, but I'm going anyway." They drove into town under armed escort. 2 state police vehicles in front, 2 behind. Ghost sat in the back seat, alert, as always, his head swiveling to track every car they passed. The county building was surrounded by media, cameras, reporters, crowds of locals who'd come to witness history being made. Sarah saw familiar faces in the crowd, people she'd known her whole life, people who'd dismissed her grief as obsession. They weren't dismissing her now. Marcus helped her into her wheelchair. Ghost jumped down and took his position at her side. Together they moved through the crowd toward the building entrance. Sarah Mitchell." A reporter shoved a microphone toward her face. "How does it feel to know your fiancé's killers are finally being brought to justice?" Sarah stopped. The crowd went quiet. "It doesn't feel like anything," she said. "Ryan is still dead. Nothing brings him back." She paused. "But at least now people know the truth. That's all I ever wanted." She wheeled forward without another word. Inside the building hummed with activity. State police, FBI agents, lawyers. Everyone moving with purpose, preparing for the reckoning that was about to unfold. A woman approached Sarah. Late 40s, sharp eyes, wearing a suit that spoke of serious authority. "Miss Mitchell, I'm Special Agent Diana Reyes. I'm leading the federal investigation." Sarah shook her hand. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for not giving up." Reyes glanced at Marcus, then at Ghost. "Interesting security detail. They've kept me alive this long." Reyes nodded, a flicker of respect in her eyes. "We've been going through the files Teresa Brennan provided. The scope of this network is significant." "How significant?" Reyes lowered her voice. "We're looking at corruption reaching into state government, possibly higher." Sarah felt the weight of those words. State government, possibly higher. Ryan had stumbled onto something bigger than anyone had imagined. "What do you need from me?" Sarah asked. "Everything. Every conversation, every document, every interaction you've had related to this case." Reyes gestured toward a conference room. "We've set up a secure space. Take as long as you need." For the next 6 hours, Sarah talked. She told them about Ryan's investigation, about the night he died, about the 2 years she'd spent gathering evidence while everyone told her she was crazy. She handed over documents, named names, drew connections between people and payments and crimes. Marcus waited outside the room with Ghost. He didn't pace. He didn't fidget. He simply sat still as stone, his eyes never leaving the door. Holloway found him around noon. "How's she holding up?" the captain asked. "Better than any of us." Marcus looked at him. "What's happening out there?" "Arrests. A lot of arrests." Holloway sat down heavily. "County Commissioner Blake, 2 city councilmen, the police chief from Riverdale, 3 more deputies from my own department." He shook his head. "I had no idea it went this deep." "You couldn't have known." "I should have. That's my job." Holloway's voice was heavy with guilt. "I trusted these people. I worked beside them for years, and they were rotten the whole time." Ghost moved closer to Holloway, pressing his nose against the captain's hand, a small gesture of comfort from a creature who understood more than most humans. Holloway scratched behind the dog's ears. "He's something special, isn't he? Saved my life more times than I can count." "I believe it." The conference room door opened. Reyes stepped out, her expression unreadable. "Mr. Cole, we need you in here." Marcus stood. "What's going on?" "Sarah asked for you, and there's something you both need to see." Inside the conference room, Sarah sat at the table papers spread before her. Her face was pale, but her eyes burned with intensity. "Tell him," she said to Reyes. The FBI agent pulled up an image on a laptop screen. A photograph. A man in his 60s, silver-haired, distinguished-looking. The kind of face you saw on campaign posters. "Do you recognize this man?" Reyes asked Marcus. "Should I?" "His name is Senator Richard Crane. He's been in office for 18 years. Chairs the State Judiciary Committee." Reyes paused. "And according to the files Teresa Brennan provided, he's been receiving payments from the network for the past decade." Marcus stared at the screen. "A senator, not just any senator, one of the most powerful men in state politics." Reyes turned to Sarah. "The payments to Crane started 6 months before your fiancé began his investigation, and they increased significantly right after Ryan's death." Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. He was protecting them. From the beginning. It appears so. Crane used his position to block oversight, to kill investigations before they started, to ensure that anyone who asked too many questions was quietly removed. Reyes closed the laptop. "He's the reason this network survived so long." Marcus sat down beside Sarah. "Can you prove it?" "With Teresa's files, yes. But Crane isn't going to go down easily. He has resources, connections, the best lawyers money can buy." Reyes looked at both of them. "This fight is just beginning." Sarah straightened in her wheelchair. "Then let's fight." The next 24 hours were chaos. News of Senator Crane's involvement leaked despite attempts to contain it. Media descended on Willow Creek from across the country. The story that had started with a corrupt deputy was now a national scandal. Crane denied everything, of course, called it a witch hunt, claimed the evidence was fabricated by political enemies. His lawyers flooded the airwaves with counter-narratives and threats of defamation suits. But the files didn't lie. And Teresa Brennan's testimony from beyond the grave was irrefutable. Sarah watched the senator's press conference from Elena's office. He stood at a podium flanked by advisors, his face a mask of righteous indignation. "These accusations are baseless and politically motivated," Crane declared. "I have dedicated my career to serving the people of this state, and I will not be brought down by conspiracy theories and manufactured evidence." Elena muted the television. "He's scared." "He should be." Sarah's voice was flat. "He helped cover up Ryan's murder. He took money to protect the people who killed him. Can we prove a direct connection? The payments prove he was part of the network, but linking him specifically to Ryan's death." Sarah shook her head. "We need more." Marcus leaned against the wall, Ghost at his feet. "What about Wade? Has he talked?" Elena checked her notes. "He's cooperating with investigators, trying to cut a deal." "What kind of deal?" "Reduced sentence in exchange for testimony against higher-level targets." Sarah's hands tightened on her wheels. "He might know about Crane." "He might know a lot of things." Marcus pushed off the wall. "I think it's time I had a conversation with Deputy Brennan." Holloway arranged the meeting. The county jail was a squat, gray building on the edge of town. Marcus entered alone, leaving Ghost with Sarah at Elena's office. Some conversations needed to happen without witnesses. Wade Brennan looked different in an orange jumpsuit. Smaller. The arrogance that had defined him seemed to have leaked away, leaving behind a hollow shell of the man who had terrorized Sarah in the park. "Cole," Wade's voice was flat. Didn't expect to see you here. I bet you didn't expect a lot of things. Marcus sat down across from him. Your wife is dead. Wade flinched. For a moment, something human flickered across his face. I heard. She died because she tried to help, because she gave us the files that proved what you'd been doing. Marcus leaned forward. You could have protected her. You could have told the truth years ago. Instead, you let the whole thing rot until it consumed everything you loved. Wade's jaw tightened. You don't know anything about what I've been through. I know you covered up a murder. I know you took bribes. I know you pushed a woman out of her wheelchair because she dared to seek justice for her dead fiancé. Marcus's voice was cold. I know exactly what you are. And what's that? A coward. Wade's face contorted with rage. For a second, he looked like he might lunge across the table. Then the fight went out of him and he slumped back in his chair. What do you want? Senator Crane. Wade's eyes flickered. What about him? Your wife's files show payments to him going back 10 years, but we need more. We need direct evidence that Crane was involved in covering up Ryan Mitchell's death. Wade was quiet for a long moment. His fingers drummed against the table, a nervous rhythm. You don't understand what you're asking. I understand perfectly. I'm asking you to do the right thing for once in your miserable life. Crane will destroy me. Even from prison, he has people who can make my life a living hell. You're already in hell, Wade. The only question is whether you want to drag yourself out or keep sinking. Marcus stood up. Sarah Mitchell lost everything. Her fiancé, her ability to walk. 2 years of her life fighting for justice while everyone called her crazy, and she never gave up. He walked toward the door, then stopped. You could learn something from her. He left without looking back. That night, Wade Brennan made a decision. He called his lawyer. Then he called Holloway. Then he called Reyes. I'll tell you everything, he said. About Crane, about Harrison, about all of them. Everything they've been hiding for the past 15 years. Why now? Reyes asked. Wade's voice broke. Because my wife died trying to do the right thing, and I'm tired of being the reason good people suffer. The testimony was devastating. Wade revealed that Crane had been the network's political protector from the very beginning. When problems arose, Crane made them disappear. When investigations got too close, Crane redirected them. When Ryan Mitchell started asking questions that threatened to expose everything, Crane had given the order. Not to kill Ryan directly, nothing that obvious, but to handle the situation permanently. The night of the crash, Wade's brother had been drinking at a bar owned by one of Crane's associates. He'd been encouraged to drive. He'd been told which road Ryan and Sarah would be taking home. It wasn't an accident. It was an assassination dressed up to look like a tragedy. When Wade finished his testimony, the room was silent. Sarah sat in her wheelchair, tears streaming down her face. Not tears of grief this time. Tears of something she couldn't name. Validation, maybe. Or release. I always knew, she whispered. I always knew it wasn't an accident. Marcus knelt beside her. You were right, about everything. Ryan died because he was trying to do the right thing. And you kept fighting when everyone told you to stop. Marcus took her hand. He'd be proud of you. Sarah looked at him through her tears. You think so? I know so. Ghost pressed against her legs, his warmth a constant comfort. She reached down and buried her fingers in his fur. Thank you, she said. To Marcus. To Ghost. To everyone who had believed her when belief seemed impossible. The arrest warrant for Senator Richard Crane was issued the next morning. Federal agents found him at his estate, packing suitcases, preparing to flee. He was taken into custody without incident, his face a mask of cold fury as cameras captured every moment. Sarah watched the footage from Marcus's cabin. Ghost lay at her feet. Marcus stood beside her, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. "It's really over," she said. "The arrests are over. The trials are just beginning." "I know." Sarah took a deep breath. "But they can't hide anymore. The whole world knows what they did." Elena arrived an hour later, practically vibrating with energy. "You're not going to believe this," she said, pulling out her phone. "The governor just announced a special commission to investigate corruption throughout the state. They're using Willow Creek as the model case." "A commission?" Sarah frowned. "Is that good?" "It's huge. It means this isn't just about a few bad actors. It's about systemic change." Elena grinned. "And they want you to testify, in front of the state legislature." Sarah's heart stuttered. "Me? You're the face of this story, Sarah. The woman who wouldn't give up. The survivor who brought down a senator." Elena sat beside her. "People need to hear your voice. They need to see that one person can make a difference." Sarah looked at Marcus. "What do you think? I think you've come too far to stay silent now." Ghost lifted his head, his amber eyes fixed on Sarah's face. She could have sworn he nodded. "Okay," she said. "I'll do it." 3 days later, Sarah Mitchell wheeled herself into the state capitol building. The chamber was packed. Legislators, media, hundreds of ordinary citizens who had come to witness history. Cameras lined every wall, broadcasting to millions across the country. Sarah positioned herself at the witness table, Marcus and Ghost waiting in the gallery above. She could feel their presence, even without seeing them. A silent reminder that she wasn't alone. The committee chair called the session to order. "Miss Mitchell, thank you for being here today. We know this has been an incredibly difficult journey." "Thank you for listening," Sarah replied. It took a long time for anyone to listen. For the next 2 hours, she told her story. She talked about Ryan, about the crash, about waking up in a hospital bed, unable to feel her legs, and learning that the man she loved was gone. She talked about the cover-up, the intimidation, the years of being dismissed and discredited, and she talked about the people who had helped her. Elena, who had believed her story when no one else would. Captain Holloway, who had chosen justice over loyalty. Teresa Brennan, who had paid for her courage with her life. And Marcus, the stranger who had stepped in when she needed him most, who had stood between her and danger without hesitation, whose dog had become her guardian in ways she still didn't fully understand. When she finished, the chamber was silent. Then someone in the gallery began to clap. Another person joined. Then another. Within seconds, the entire room was on its feet, applauding a woman in a wheelchair who had refused to be silenced. Sarah looked up at the gallery. Marcus met her eyes. He wasn't clapping. He didn't need to. His pride showed in his face, his respect, his admiration. And something else, something neither of them had words for yet. Ghost stood at the gallery railing looking down at her. His tail wagged once. Sarah smiled. For the first time in 2 years, she felt whole. 6 months passed like water through fingers. Sarah stood at the window of her new apartment watching the morning light spread across Willow Creek. Stood. The word still felt foreign even now. 3 months of intensive physical therapy had given her something the doctors once said was impossible. Partial mobility. Enough to stand with braces. Enough to take a few steps with support. Not a miracle. Just stubbornness. Ghost lay on the rug behind her, his gray muzzle resting on his paws. He watched her the way he always did, alert even in stillness, ready to move if she needed him. "You don't have to guard me anymore," she said softly. The dog's tail thumped once against the floor. They both knew she was lying. Her phone buzzed. A text from Elena. "Crane verdict coming in. 1 hour. You watching Sarah," typed back. "Wouldn't miss it." She made her way to the couch using the walker Marcus had built for her. Custom-designed lightweight with handles positioned exactly where her hands naturally fell. He'd spent 2 weeks on it, measuring and adjusting until it was perfect. That was Marcus. Quiet acts of care never announced, never explained. Ghost rose and followed her, settling at her feet once she sat down. Sarah turned on the television, her heart already racing. The courtroom footage filled the screen. Senator Richard Crane sat at the defense table, his silver hair perfectly styled, his expression carefully neutral. But Sarah could see the cracks now, the slight tremor in his hands, the way his eyes darted toward the exits. He knew what was coming. The jury filed in. 12 ordinary people who had spent 4 months listening to testimony, reviewing evidence, watching the network's crimes, laid bare in excruciating detail. The judge called for the verdict. The foreperson stood. A woman in her 50s, steady-voiced, unafraid. "On the charge of conspiracy to obstruct justice, we find the defendant guilty." Sarah's breath caught. "On the charge of racketeering, we find the defendant guilty." Tears began to slide down her cheeks. "On the charge of accessory to murder in the 2nd degree, we find the defendant guilty." The courtroom erupted. Crane's mask finally shattered. He slumped in his chair, a broken man, his empire of lies crumbling around him. Sarah covered her mouth with her hand. Ghost pressed closer, his nose touching her knee. "We did it, Ryan," she whispered. "We finally did it." The front door opened. Marcus walked in, still wearing his search and rescue jacket. He'd been on a training exercise when the verdict was announced. He saw the television, saw Sarah's tears, saw the guilty verdict scrolling across the screen. Without a word, he crossed the room and sat beside her. His hand found hers. They watched together as the judge scheduled sentencing, as Crane was led away in handcuffs, as reporters scrambled to capture every moment of the powerful man's downfall. "How do you feel?" Marcus asked finally. Sarah considered the question. "Empty, full, everything at once." "That's about right." She leaned against his shoulder. Ghost stretched across both their feet. "I thought I'd feel different," Sarah said. "I thought when this moment came, everything would make sense. The pain, the loss, all of it." "Does it?" "No, Ryan's still gone. I still can't walk properly. 2 years of my life are still gone." She paused. "But it matters. What we did matters. The truth matters." Marcus squeezed her hand. "That's enough." "Is it? It has to be." The phone rang. Holloway. "You watching?" he asked without preamble. "Every second." "Good, because there's something else you need to know." Holloway's voice was strange, almost excited. "We found something. In Crane's safe. A box of letters." Sarah frowned. "Letters. From Ryan." The world stopped. "What? Ryan sent letters to Crane. Warnings, evidence, proof of what the network was doing." Holloway's voice cracked. "Crane kept them. All these years he kept them as insurance, in case he ever needed to prove that he'd been threatened, that he was acting in self-defense." Sarah's hand tightened on the phone. "Ryan tried to give him a chance. He tried to give everyone a chance. That's the kind of man he was." Holloway paused. "There's one more letter, Sarah. It wasn't addressed to Crane. It was addressed to you. Sarah couldn't breathe. He must have written it before the accident. Crane found it in Ryan's car after the crash, kept it with the others. Holloway's voice softened. Do you want me to bring it to you? Yes. The word came out strangled. Please. She hung up. Marcus was watching her concern etched across his face. What is it? Ryan. Sarah's voice broke. He wrote me a letter, the night he died. Crane had it all along. Marcus didn't ask questions. He simply held her while she shook. Holloway arrived an hour later. He handed Sarah a worn envelope, her name written across the front in Ryan's familiar handwriting. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. The letter inside was dated the night of the accident. The ink had faded slightly, but the words were clear. My dearest Sarah, if you're reading this, something has gone wrong. I hope I'm being paranoid. I hope I'll be there tomorrow to laugh about this with you and throw this letter away. But if I'm not, I need you to know some things. First, I love you, more than I've ever loved anything or anyone. These past 3 years with you have been the best of my life. You make me want to be better, braver, more honest. Second, I'm sorry for the danger I've put you in, for the secrets I've kept, for the burden I'm leaving behind. I never wanted any of this to touch you. Third, don't let them win. Whatever happens to me, don't let them bury the truth. I know you, Sarah. I know how strong you are, stronger than you think, strong enough to finish what I started. The evidence is in the lockbox under the cabin floor. The code is your birthday. Everything they've done, everyone involved, it's all there. Fight for me. Fight for us. Fight for everyone they've hurt. And when it's over, live. Really live. Don't let grief become a prison. Find joy again. Find love again. Find a life worth living. That's what I want for you. That's all I've ever wanted. Forever yours, Ryan. Sarah read the letter 3 times before the words stopped blurring. He had known. That night driving home, he had known something might happen. And instead of running, instead of hiding, he had left her everything she needed to bring them down. The cabin, she said suddenly. He mentioned a cabin. Marcus looked at her. What cabin? His family had a fishing cabin, out by Miller's Lake. It's been abandoned for years. Sarah's mind raced. He said there's a lockbox under the floor. Evidence, everything we might have missed. And Holloway was already reaching for his phone. I'll get a team out there. No. Sarah shook her head. I need to do this. I need to see it myself. Sarah, the cabin's been closed for years. There could be structural damage, wildlife, anything. I don't care. Ryan left this for me. I'm going to find it. Marcus stood up. Then I'm coming with you. Ghost was already on his feet, tail wagging, ready for whatever came next. The drive to Miller's Lake took 2 hours. The cabin sat at the end of a dirt road surrounded by overgrown brush and memories. Sarah hadn't been here since before the accident. She and Ryan had talked about fixing it up someday, turning it into a weekend getaway. Someday never came. Marcus helped her out of the truck. The walker sank slightly into the soft earth, but she managed. Ghost ranged ahead, sniffing, checking for threats. The cabin door was swollen with moisture. Marcus had to shoulder it open. Inside, dust motes danced in the weak light filtering through dirty windows. Where did he say it was? Marcus asked. Under the floor, living room area. They found the loose board within minutes. Beneath it, buried in the dirt, was a metal lockbox coated in rust and time. Sarah entered her birthday. The lock clicked open. Inside was a treasure trove. Flash drives, documents, photographs, A detailed journal in Ryan's handwriting documenting every crime, every payment, every connection. But there was something else. Something Sarah hadn't expected. A velvet box. She opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a ring. Simple. Beautiful. A diamond set in white gold, exactly the style she'd always loved. "Oh, God," she whispered. Marcus looked over her shoulder, his breath caught. He was going to propose. Sarah couldn't speak. She could only hold the ring, feeling its weight, imagining the moment that never happened. The question never asked. The yes that never came. "He told me he had something special planned," she finally said. "After everything settled down, he said we'd take a weekend at the lake and he'd ask me something important." She laughed through her tears. "I thought he was talking about getting a dog." Ghost pressed against her leg, as if answering a question no one had asked. Sarah slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "This is what I would have said," she whispered to the empty cabin. "Yes. 1,000 times yes." Marcus put his arm around her. Ghost sat at her feet. And in that dusty, forgotten cabin surrounded by evidence of evil and proof of love, Sarah Mitchell finally said goodbye. The drive back to Willow Creek was quiet. Sarah held the lockbox in her lap, the ring still on her finger. Ghost slept in the back seat, exhausted from the emotional weight of the day. "What happens now?" Marcus asked. "I give this to Reyes. She'll want to go through everything." Sarah looked at the passing trees. "There might be names we missed. People who are still out there. And then I start living, like Ryan wanted." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "What does that look like?" "I don't know yet." Sarah turned to face him. "But I know I don't want to do it alone." Their eyes met. Something shifted between them, something that had been building for months but neither had acknowledged. "I'm not going anywhere," Marcus said. "I know." Sarah reached over and took his hand. "That's the only reason I'm still here." 3 weeks later, Sarah testified before the state legislature one final time. The evidence from Ryan's lockbox had led to 12 more arrests. State officials, business leaders, a network of corruption that stretched across 3 counties. The governor had launched a comprehensive reform initiative, new oversight committees, independent investigators, real accountability. Change was happening, slowly, painfully, but happening. Sarah sat before the committee ghost beside her wheelchair, Marcus in the gallery above. She told them about Ryan's letter, about the ring, about the man who had died trying to protect a system that had failed him. "Ryan Mitchell was a good man," she said. "A good deputy. A good person. He saw something wrong and he tried to fix it. Not because anyone asked him to, not because he would benefit from it, just because it was the right thing to do." She paused, collecting herself. "I spent 2 years fighting for justice. I was called crazy, obsessed, a grieving woman who couldn't let go. And maybe I was all of those things. But I was also right. And being right mattered. The truth mattered. Ryan's life mattered." She looked up at the gallery, at Marcus, at the man who had become her anchor in the storm. "I'm not here to ask for anything. The guilty have been punished. The innocent have been vindicated. The system is finally starting to heal." She straightened in her chair. "I'm here to remind you why this matters, because there are other Ryans out there, other people who see something wrong and want to fix it. Other voices crying out in the wilderness." Her voice grew stronger. "Listen to them. Believe them. Support them. Because the next Sarah Mitchell might not be as stubborn as I am. The next whistleblower might give up before the truth comes out. The next victim might die in silence, and no one will ever know what was lost." She looked directly into the cameras. "Don't let that happen. Don't let their courage be wasted. Don't let the darkness win." The chamber erupted in applause. 1 year later. Sarah stood at Cedar Creek Trail exactly where it had all begun. The wheelchair was gone. She walked now slowly with a cane. Not perfect, not easy, but walking. Marcus stood beside her. Ghost lay at their feet, his muzzle almost entirely gray, now his eyes still bright with intelligence. "I never thought I'd come back here," Sarah said. "Why did you?" "Because I needed to." She looked at the spot where Wade had pushed her, where she'd fallen, where everything had changed. "This place used to terrify me. Now it just feels like a place." Marcus took her hand. "That's healing." "I know." She turned to face him. "Thank you. For everything. For that first day. For every day since." "You saved yourself, Sarah. I just stood beside you. That's enough. That's everything." She stepped closer. "Ryan told me to find love again. To find a life worth living." Marcus's breath caught. And I think I have." She kissed him. Ghost's tail thumped against the ground. If dogs could smile, he was smiling. When they finally pulled apart, Marcus was laughing. "What?" Sarah asked. "Ghost. He's been waiting for that for months." Sarah looked down at the dog. "Is that true?" Ghost barked once. Clear, decisive. "I'll take that as a yes." They walked along the trail together, the three of them. The path wound through trees that were just beginning to bloom new growth, replacing what winter had stripped away. At the bend in the river, Sarah stopped. "I want to do something." She reached into her pocket and pulled out Ryan's ring. She'd worn it every day since finding it. A reminder. A promise. "I'm not forgetting him," she said. "I'm not moving on from him. But I think it's time to let go of the grief, the anger, the weight." She looked at the ring one last time. "Thank you," she whispered, "for loving me, for believing in me, for giving me the strength to fight." Then she kissed the ring and slipped it back into her pocket. Not throwing it away, not burying it, just moving it from her hand to a place closer to her heart. "Ready?" Marcus asked. Sarah took his hand. Ghost pressed against her other side. "Ready." They walked forward together toward whatever came next. Behind them, the river flowed on, constant, unchanging, carrying everything that had happened downstream toward the sea. But the truth remained. The justice remained. The love remained. And that was enough. 6 months later, Sarah Mitchell founded the Ryan Mitchell Foundation, dedicated to protecting whistleblowers and supporting victims of institutional corruption. Elena Ruiz won a Pulitzer Prize for her coverage of the Willow Creek scandal. Captain Holloway was appointed State Police Commissioner tasked with implementing reforms across the entire law enforcement system. Marcus and Sarah moved into a house on the edge of town. Not the cabin. Not anywhere connected to the past. Somewhere new. Somewhere they could build fresh memories. Ghost claimed the sunny spot by the living room window. He was 11 years old now, slower than before, his joints aching on cold mornings. But his eyes never lost their sharpness. His loyalty never wavered. On quiet evenings when the sun set over the mountains and the world grew still, Sarah would sit by the window and watch the light fade. Ghost would rest his head on her feet. Marcus would read beside her, his presence a constant comfort. And sometimes in those moments she would think about everything that had led her here. The loss, the pain, the fight, the triumph. She would think about Ryan and the love that had shaped her. She would think about Wade and the hatred that had nearly destroyed her. She would think about Teresa and the courage that had cost her everything. And she would think about the stranger and his dog, who had appeared when she needed them most, who had stood beside her when everyone else turned away, who had helped her find a future she never thought she'd have. Strength does not always roar. Sometimes it sits quietly at the river's edge, refusing to be moved. Sometimes it stands between the powerful and the powerless, asking nothing in return. Sometimes it simply stays when staying is the hardest thing of all. Sarah Mitchell learned that lesson in the worst way possible. And she spent the rest of her life teaching it to others. Because the truth matters. Justice matters. Love matters. And the people who fight for them, no matter the cost, matter most of all.